On tonight's programme, how was a murder solved before police even knew it had happened? Could this map be proof of a lost civilization? And what saved a woman when doctors pronounced her dead? Welcome to Mysteries. Our first film is about the tragic death in New Orleans of a young man called Andre Daigle. Like so many other victims, Andre was murdered when he found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. But what makes this story so unusual is the way in which his murder was discovered, because at the time, police were totally unaware that it had even been committed.
Andre and I grew up together. Nobody I knew disliked him. His whole life and my whole life, everybody I knew loved Andre. That's what kind of guy he was. It was June of '87. Andre was 27 at the time. We walked into a bar room we had never been to shoot pool. We shot a few games. He had walked up to the bar and met a girl, and she asked him for a ride home. And Andre was that kind of guy. If somebody needed a ride home, you know, he would give her a ride home. I said bye, he said bye, and that was it. That's the last time I saw him.
Andre's family was becoming very worried when he still wasn't home after 2 days.
Nick, have you heard anything at all?
No, not yet. Nobody's heard anything.
Hasn't tried to contact anybody? Nobody in the family either?
Hasn't called anybody. I even went back to the bar where we were and asked around. Nobody's seen him.
He's been going 2 days?
We knew that this was not right. You know, Andre would have been home. Someone would have heard from Andre if it was my mom or one of my sisters.
We called everyone we knew, that kind of thing.
What about the police? Have we talked to the police? Can they help us?
Talk to the police. They can't do anything unless they suspect something.
Initially, they couldn't do anything because of their policy and his age.
They say he's a 27-year-old man. He may have met somebody and gone off with them.
The more we heard that, the more we felt that we had to make the effort.
And that's when we pulled out a map of New Orleans and sectioned it off where people searched certain sections of New Orleans.
Let's try this way.
All they knew for certain was that Andre had left the pool hall in his black truck.
When we got the flyers, you know, we would drive the streets and then we would drop the flyers off and post them, you know, wherever we found a place to post them.
Everyone had been searching the city, and we had gotten to the point where everybody had searched the city. And the only thing left to do was to research and go through the whole steps again.
If you could find the truck would lead us to Andre.
Stop, stop.
What, you got something?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go on.
You can imagine the things that go through your mind when someone's missing for 4 or 5 days. The worst, but you're hoping for the best.
You see this guy?
Andre's sister Elise lived 2,000 miles away in California.
Hello? Mom? Any news?
What could I possibly do to help? All I could do was monopolize him by being on the phone. It was a terrible, frustrating situation. So when my friend said to me, how about a psychic? Do you think she could help? I was certainly willing to try anything to find him.
After 5 days, when the family hadn't found a trace of Andre, Elise went to see Rosemary Kerr.
I'm asking my spiritual guides, or call them guardian angels, from the light to come in around me so that I can get the information that you're here seeking. So what I would like you to do for me, please, is give me Andre's picture, and would you hand it to me face down, please? And when they introduce a picture, I don't look at it. It's laid flat down in front of me, and I take my hands very lightly and run it over the picture. And as I'm running my hands over the picture, all these images come in. I was actually looking through Andre's eyes. Well, I'm seeing Andre with a dark or a black truck at this time. And as I see the black truck, it's like I'm looking at it from behind, and what I'm seeing in the truck is other people, but in particular, I'm seeing a person with long blonde hair. I want to call it dirty blonde hair. At the time, I couldn't tell if it was a male or a female because of the way everyone wore the hair. But one of the things that came in very strongly at that time was that this person had, I want to call it like a black veil over them, and it had nothing good about the person where it concerned her brother, Andre. Would you please introduce the map of where Andre lives? I always work and I read with my eyes closed, but that's how I see better. Okay, as I'm coming over into this area, I'm getting very strong vibrations.
And then she started pointing toward an area that was familiar to me, and then just stopped.
Do you know where this area is?
Yes, that's Slidell. That's Interstate 10.
And at that time, it came in with such a strong emotion. And this is when I asked her, do you know where this place is? And she said, yes, she did. And that's when I explained to her, this is where you'll find him in his black truck, but you have to do it quick, do it now.
Hello. Elise.
As soon as I got home, I picked up the phone and called Mom to let her know the information that I had gotten.
What about,
Okay.
What about Andre?
Now? Okay, we're ready. We're going now. Okay, see you, bye-bye.
What did you say?
Personally, I took it as, okay, you know, we've tried everything else, so let's try this.
Come on, Andre, just hold on.
When we were driving there, Rosemary had mentioned to us to talk to Andre. So we were.
Hang on, Andre. We're almost there.
Here it is. One more. Half a mile. Let's go.
Oh, God, that's a truck. That's a truck.
That's it. That's the one. That's the truck.
Oh, my God.
Nobody could believe the truck. We were looking at each other, reading tags, you know, reading the license plate. We couldn't believe that was the truck.
That's his truck.
That's Andre's truck, and two strange guys are driving Andre's truck.
I was very upset and very angry, and I just wanted to stop them, but, you know, we couldn't stop the truck.
All right, if those two guys are in the truck, where's my brother? That's his truck.
Let's just keep up with him. Very good.
Oh, God, look. Stay behind him. Don't get
Where's
close.
he going?
Look, he's taking it. He's taking Miss Exon.
Oh,
Take it.
he's going.
You know, we were all pretty scared because we were having to drive pretty wild to keep up with these people.
But it's not Andre. Take this.
That's the end of the road. Hang back a little. Whoa, stop!
Turn the lights off.
Lights are out.
So I ran out to go call the police, and that's when all of a sudden the lights in the truck come back on, and the motor races, and they took off.
Stay down. Stay down.
So Chris turned the car around. He turned real quick, and they took off.
Yeah, I'm right behind him.
Be careful. Look, there's a police car up there. There's a police car right there. Pull over.
Take this to him. Take the flyer. Show him that it's Andre. Let him know there was a stolen truck. Maybe they can help.
And then there's the police. First they weren't there. Boom, a minute later, they're there, sitting there. And it was like, wow, where'd they come from? And then we got behind the police, and we followed them.
I'm going. God, I wonder where's Andre.
Next thing you know, we're right up there with them, and they pull them over.
The two men later confessed to having murdered Andre and stolen his truck.
Where's Andre?
But did Rosemary really help to catch them?
Rosemary's information was crucial to this investigation. Had that information not been there, the chances of finding Andre and these two individuals were slim and none. They would probably still be out there, and Andre would probably still be unaccounted for. I'm sort of a rational person, and I can't really comprehend how she does it, but I do believe she has the ability to see things that are not visible to other people.
Not everyone is so convinced of Rosemary's so-called psychic powers.
I myself, from what I know of this case, think that this was a matter of coincidence. They were searching for days. The more you search, the more you're apt to run across some kind of a clue. They run across a very specific one, that is the car. This was a combination of persistent effort on their part and coincidence.
How did she know to point to Slidell on a map and that I could get there, or my family could get there with ease? You know, how does Rosemary know that my brother has a dark-colored vehicle? I didn't even know the color of the truck. How did Rosemary know that there was a blonde-haired person in the vehicle?
The person had blonde hair, which is a 50-50 chance, and it was maybe long, so it could have been a man or a woman. A black truck, most trucks are not white. Psychics generally have a routine of giving a lot of clues. If you give enough of the cues, then there's a practice of what they call retrofitting. And retrofitting involves, after the thing has been solved, after the story has been solved, after things have been resolved, then you pick out the cues that you can sort of fool around with and make them fit.
2,000 miles away. I don't know them, they don't know me. They're getting a message to me that I call from spirit. To me, it's from the light. So this is something I don't argue with. And if anyone said it's a coincidence, all I could say with them, believe or disbelieve, it happened. It's a proven fact.
Our next story begins almost 500 years ago at the height of the Ottoman Empire, when Turkey was the most powerful country in the world. But although this empire stretched from Yugoslavia to Iran, much of the globe still remained uncharted and undiscovered, which meant that some of the most valuable pieces of information anyone could have were maps. To the Ottomans, maps were power, and the very best were drawn by a man called Piri Reis. But one of his maps is surrounded by mystery, because it contains information that Piri Reis could not have known at the time it was drawn.
The Ottoman Empire was considered the terror of Europe, that everybody feared the Ottomans. Map making in the Ottoman Empire, as well as throughout the world, was essential because you had to know where your enemy lived, which particular territory was available for conquest, whether it was actually worthy of being conquered. And Piri Reis was a master map maker, that he was very experienced, very professional, and he is considered one of the most brilliant map makers of the 16th century. He acquired maps drawn by Columbus, and he brought those back to the Ottoman Empire and started working on his own map. This was the first of its kind in the Muslim world, the first time that a Muslim knew of the existence of the New World.
This is the map in question. It's a copy of the original, which was certainly genuine. But on this map, Piri Reis appears to have drawn the coast of Antarctica. The mystery being that Antarctica wasn't discovered until 1818. That's 300 years after this map was drawn. So, how can this possibly be explained?
What's important to understand about the Piri Reis map is that although it was drawn in 1513, it was copied from earlier source maps, now lost, and it's those earlier source maps that interest me. I don't think historians have got it right when they tell us adamantly, and as though it was a fact, that civilization began at around 3000 BC. Because I suggest that the Piri Reis map may be a legacy of a lost civilization, a civilization of mariners and seafarers that had explored the entire Earth long before history began, and that had mapped the Earth, and that some of those maps survived and were passed down the generations, copied and recopied, and that the Piri Reis map is an example of one of those.
But not everyone is so convinced.
The Piri Reis maps appear to be, let's say, two-thirds true. You can recognize Africa, you can recognize Europe, you can sort of recognize America. Therefore, there's an assumption that the other third of the Piri Reis map, the part at the bottom, must also be true, but must be true in some sort of mysterious way. And in fact, the reason why the period race map exists is because period race was an able man and an ambitious man and wanted to get on with his career. And like many other map makers and many other artists, period race used the sources of information that were available to him, and when there was no source of information available to him, as I think with the southern continent, he just did a doodle. And I think we've been taken in by the doodle into thinking it's something more.
It's not just that it shows the continent of Antarctica, it's also the amazing technological precision of the map. And it's another indicator that we may be dealing with something much more than coincidence here. We may be dealing with the legacy of a lost civilization.
But if it is Antarctica, then the map reveals another mystery, because the coastline was covered in ice. So could Piri Reis have seen through it in some way? Well, one person who should know is Sir Ranulph Fiennes.
On the days when the blizzards are blowing, we sometimes can't see the end of your sledge. And when the weather is bad, for anybody to make a map would be impossible. And even in that good weather, it would have been impossible to have mapped the land underneath the ice. In places, the ice is a mile deep, so you'd have to be a magician to make a map of what lies under the ice.
But does this mean there was an ancient civilization which travelled to Antarctica before the coast was covered in ice?
If the data on the Piri Reis map had any reliability, then you're going back to a period when the Antarctic wasn't ice-covered. And basically, the last time that land was ice-free was almost 5 million years ago. It's inconceivable there was any mapping at that period, of course. And at that time, the bedrock, the distribution of things, was quite different from what the subglacial features are today. 5 million years is a very long period for change.
The issue of when Antarctica became covered with ice is a thoroughly controversial issue. Some scientists have suggested that it may have been as recently as 4000 BC. And what I'm suggesting is that we may have lost an entire civilization at that time, which became later the stuff of myth and legends, but left a few specific traces of itself. And one of these traces is the Piri Reis map.
There is one theory, though, that has nothing to do with lost ancient civilizations or pure guesswork. Perhaps there's a much simpler key to the mystery of Piri Reis's map.
The area of the map which people say might be Antarctica, well, it just isn't Antarctica. It's South America. All that happened is that Piri Reis was drawing the coastline, the paper ran out, so he changed the direction. Nobody from the west knew where the coastline went, so he drew it as it suited him.
The extension of South America that is shown has been examined in very close detail by United States Air Force cartographers, and they've put their reputations on the line. They have stated in writing that this map very closely resembles the continent of Antarctica.
People who espouse theories about this map being accurate are off their heads. How could it be accurate? It was based on a few voyages in primitive ships by Columbus, and then Piri Reis copied it from other people's maps. It wasn't even his own original. I think he did brilliantly, but it's still not accurate.
And when I listen to those explanations, I rather feel that I'm listening to or looking at a drowning man clutching at straws. They desperately, desperately do not want the map to be an accurate rendition of Antarctica, because they know that if it is, then the whole basis of modern history goes down the tubes.
When Dora Downs was taken into hospital for a routine operation, her family had no idea just how big an effect it would have on all of their lives. Because during surgery, Dora went into cardiac arrest, and in spite of all the technology, all of the machines, and all of the expert medical knowledge, the doctors and nurses seemed unable to stop her dying.
Dora and I have been married for 42 years this December. What really attracted me to Dora, I guess, was the fact that she had a good personality, fun to be with, never said no to anything we wanted to do, just always willing to do it. So we've had a nice life. We've had all we ever wanted, really. We have 4 children, 2 grandchildren, 2 cats, and lots of flowers.
But Dora and Druin's lives were about to change.
Well, we better stop for a minute. Okay. I gotta just catch my breath a second. Okay. Sure? Yeah, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Let's go.
All right. The only discomfort she had as such was just some minor heaviness in her chest prior to this. And it really wasn't a discomfort. She just casually mentioned it to the regular doctor. And he said, well, when you have time, go over and have a stress test. So there was really no indication that there was any problem whatsoever.
How are you feeling? I'm hungry.
But the test revealed there was a problem with Dora's heart. The doctors decided she needed an angiogram to find out exactly what was wrong.
I was quite concerned, not really thinking there would be any chance of any death or near death, but just it was concern like you would have for anybody going through any kind of a procedure.
What's your wire? Okay. I'm going to cranial picture.
They discovered that 2 of the main arteries from Dora's heart were blocked.
Cine, get some atropine, please. How are you doing?
Dora?
She doesn't look good.
And when doctors tried to clear them, Dora went into cardiac arrest.
Hold up your right. Somebody intubate the patient.
Sister down. I'm afraid there's been a problem. She's had a cardiac arrest. And
I became quite worried and quite alarmed at that point in time.
Here, we'll keep you in.
She only had a 50-50 chance of survival.
When Dora arrived at the operating room, she was still in critical shape, and we decided we'd go on and do a double bypass for her. Quickly prepped and draped and made the incisions and went on the heart-lung machine.
By that time, I started calling our children, and they called Dora's brothers and sisters, and they all were coming to the hospital.
Jonna, there's been some problems.
2 bypasses are done, Mark. We're going to try coming off here in a bit. You're warming? Yep, warming. Any pressure? She's still down at a 30. She's still not doing well.
Heart's not beating very well. Let's do a balloon pump. The bypass operation for Dora seemed very successful. The problem was that the heart muscle, even with the new bypass blood flow, did not want to come off the heart-lung machine.
When we arrived to the waiting room, my father was there, and he said that Mom was on her own, that they had to do emergency open heart surgery. We were very quiet. I think each of us went our own separate ways. We started, especially myself. I went to the hallway and paced up and down the halls, praying that Mom would come out of it.
Heart still doesn't look very good. Anything else we can do?
No, Dr. Wright. I have her on dopamine, dobutamine, nitroglycerin, levophed, Amuron. There's nothing else I can give her.
We all believed that we had done anything and everything that was medically possible, and that in the face of that, this lady was dying.
Hold it there. I'm going to go talk to this family.
After an hour, the medical team was still unable to get Dora's heart to work without the aid of a machine. The anaesthetist began recording Dora's death. Dr. Wright went to get her family's permission to turn the life support systems off.
Got asked to see Mrs. Downs a while ago.
Can I go in and hold her hand? He said I couldn't hold her hand because she was connected to all the tubes and everything, and I said, I don't want her to die alone.
I never for 1 minute believed it. I didn't know what my feelings were, but I didn't believe that she had died.
You've got to go back in and do everything you can to save her.
After I spoke with the family, I went back to the operating room and stopped at our scrub sink and scrubbed, and I said to myself the Lord's Prayer. I don't know what made me say a prayer at that point. I do think that we had
looked for any way to try to salvage this situation.
Then after we calmed down a little bit, we decided to get into a prayer ring. We were praying for my mom's recovery. We wanted her to come out. I've never done anything like that before. Got into a ring and held hands, and I can't explain it. I just felt this power going through our bodies.
All across the city, Dora's friends and relatives prayed for her recovery.
Dee's brother-in-law is a Baptist minister, and he went to the church and called some of his parishioners, and they all went out into the street, and they were holding hands, and they had a prayer ring. Our prayers just became very intense.
I spoke to the family.
As the medical team switched off the life support systems, Dr. Wright reached in and squeezed Dora's heart again.
This is unbelievable. She's coming off.
About 4:45 in the morning, and one of the nurses came out, and she stood in the doorway, and my dad was so nervous. He thought that something bad had happened, and she said, "Your mom opened her eyes."
Okay, how about a break? It just was indescribable. It's just like the world had turned over. Light had come through the steel building and lit her face up.
So I have no problems with the surgery that I had, no after effects from that at all. So I feel great.
Druin is convinced he knows what saved Dora's life that day.
Now I really, really believe in miracles. That prayer is the source of recovery.
I think I was given a second chance just by the grace of God to be here with my family, and I truly believe in miracles.
But what other explanations could there be?
People want to believe in miracles because they want to really believe that somehow they're very special. And so when something extraordinary happens, we would like to believe that it happened for a reason. How often do people who are prayed for live through traumatic circumstances, and how often do they die? And are there not people who have never been prayed for who seem to live through traumatic circumstances, and there's who also die?
So how does Dr. Wright explain Dora's recovery?
But we had tried to be sure there was no air, there were no clots, there was good blood flow, the grafts were open. So we were looking for any kind of standard explanation. This was special. There was something here that was not the routine, not the humdrum of either life or death. Something to us clearly unusual occurred.
I don't think luck had anything to do with it. Not at all. It had to be God's work all the way. I guess our relationship has changed to appreciate one another more. Now I tell her every day that I love her.
That's all for this week. On our next program, what led this man on a 30-year search for the truth? And could these marks prove that God really exists? Until then, from Mysteries, goodbye.
Warring Brothers next on BBC One. Only Fools and Horses in a moment.